I think the point that we're trying to get at is this money that the U.S. is given to Iran is now being used to attack us. And we're going to see more and more of these attacks be successful, and the individuals really performing these attacks be more emboldened that if they are successful, not only could they damage U.S. interests, that they could also get a really big payday.
Classical Conversation Studios presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortins, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Welcome back to another episode of Refining Rhetoric, and today we will be looking at current events through a classical lens. And we're going to be switching it up a little bit today. Our video production manager, Chris Blackburn, he is one of the very first students, along with my brother William, that went through foundations all the way through Challenge 4 for all 12 years of his homeschooling career. And he's been with Classical Conversations ever since. And so he's going to provide some of his own commentary today as we look at this article from CNBC: no shipping, no shopping. Trade experts warn Congress what more Houthi Red Sea chaos will mean for the economy. And this was from Tuesday, January 30th. If you haven't been paying attention, in the Red Sea, oil tankers have been seized or have been under attack by Houthi rebels. And this is causing, obviously, oil prices to increase, but also just the cost to move items from foreign countries to the U.S. and vice versa to increase, as the need for safety and security and all of those type of things that have been relatively peaceful on the seas for decades, really since World War II. And now we see that this chaos is going to continue to put inflationary pressures here in the United States. And really, when I was reading this article and thinking about it, I wanted to really touch on this idea from Dorothy Sayers. And if you've been in Classical Conversations, you know about Dorothy Sayers' article, The Lost Tools of Learning. And this is a little excerpt from that. And it says, "Do you often come across people from whom all their lives a subject remains a subject, divided by watertight bulkheads from all other subjects, so that they experience very great difficulty in making an immediate mental connection between, let us say, algebra and detective fiction, sewage disposal and the price of salmon, cellulose and the distribution of rainfall, or more generally, between such spheres of knowledge as philosophy and economics, or chemistry and art." And I thought this was very pertinent for this discussion, because back when Joe Biden first was elected into office, there was a hostage crisis. And part of the hostage negotiation, Joe Biden and the Democrats gave $6 billion to Iran. And this was for exchange of those hostages, which is kind of a record sum. A lot of people criticize that the U.S. really didn't get anything in exchange for it, and that this could embolden future action against the United States. You know, would they be more likely to kidnap or be willing to do violence towards U.S. citizens in the future, or U.S. interests, because they see they can get a ton of money before just for being bad guys. And, some people weren't able to put those two things together at that time. And I think we are seeing that Iran and Hezbollah commanders have helped direct the Houthi attacks in Yemen. And so, again, this is from early January, just pointing out that $6 billion has been funneled through Iran that Joe Biden gave them into these attacks on our shipping containers, on our oil containers, which will, again, to put pressure on to the United States, really, to see more inflation in the very near future. So, Chris, what do you think? Is this a good example of these ideas that Dorothy Sayers was saying was missing, or am I extrapolating too much?
Okay, so first of all, you're going to have to explain to me, how is what's happening in the Red Sea any different than when the shipping container flipped over and got stuck on the wall about 2 years ago?
Well, the difference is you've got incompetence of drivers or shipping businesses versus rebels from foreign countries intentionally attacking U.S. shipping and being able to then either kill or take captive those individuals who are on the shipping.
Does NATO or US, does anyone who has like water jurisdiction there to go in and stop this?
Yeah, so if you talk to or if you've listened to a geopolitical analyst called Peter Zahan, definitely highly recommend him. And that's what I was referring to back since World War II. After World War II, almost every other nation's navy was depleted from the war, except for the United States. And so some people criticize the U.S. for being kind of world police, and I agree that we don't need bases on probably 180 countries or whatever it is now. But one of the things that the U.S. has been doing for really since World War II is policing the waterways, and different countries have different control of different waterways, but overall, it's really been the U.S. presence that has kept these waterways clear and free. I know not specifically related to this issue, but like China has become more involved in protecting or managing major waterways in order to really get their fair share of the shipping costs that are going through those waters.
I'm trying to figure out what the missing link here is, because it sounds like, did we pull out of the Red Sea? Did we decide that it wasn't worth protecting anymore? Did we leave it to the Middle Eastern countries just to, hey, figure this out? This is the most important, waterway connection point in the entirety of Asia, and you guys can police this yourselves. Figure it out. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the specific U.S. Presence there. It's obviously wasn't necessarily specified in this article, but there's not. You got to think the sea is huge, right? I mean, the waterways are 70% or so of the Earth, and we don't have enough ships or tankers or the ability to really stop all transportation, really guard all transportation at all times. That would be significantly expensive. And so
Yeah, but how big could the Red Sea be? I mean, Moses, they walked across it. It can't be that big.
Yeah, so I think that this has just been they've had more technology now with that. Again, those billions of dollars they've received, they've been able to buy drones. We just had 3 service members killed and many more injured. And so I think the point that we're trying to get at is this money that the U.S. has given to Iran is now being used to attack us. And, it's not super successful very often. And most of the times we are able to stop it because of our military presence and our military capabilities. But as our adversaries gain military capabilities, really funded by the U.S., that we're going to see more and more of these attacks be successful, and the individuals really performing these attacks be more emboldened that if they are successful, not only could they damage U.S. interests, that they could also get a really big payday from the current administration.
So back to your question about whether or not this is an example of watertight bulkheads. Okay, so I guess the connection you're making is that because the U.S. has basically changed precedent, and we've said, we no longer, our policy used to be we don't negotiate with terrorists. Now it is, if you steal from us, well, we might be willing to pay you to get back what we want. So you kidnap someone, well, we'll give you money to get them back. You steal cargo or block a trade route, and maybe we'll pay you to open it back up. So we've basically said our policy is now, if you're willing to be disruptive enough, we'll pay you to go away. And I guess that's the policy change that's occurred. It's not that we've backed off the region or said anything different about how our military is going to be handling the Red Sea, other than at a federal level, we've decided we're willing to pay and negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah, I think that's really what's emboldened them, and that whoever was making these decisions and really encouraging this type of behavior years ago didn't really consider the greater outcome, that they saw it as a one-on-one transaction, that this was a specific event, that we're doing a specific thing, and didn't really take into fact that this could raise prices, that this could cause deaths of service members, that this is a one and done thing and it is not going to affect anything else around it. So that's why I was talking about the watertight bulkheads from other subjects. Is we said, okay, this is exchange for prisoners. Well, how does an exchange for prisoners negatively affect inflation in the United States? They weren't able to extrapolate that out, that they just said, oh, this is a good thing we're doing. We're getting 5 service members for $6 billion, which is like $1.2 billion per service member. And there will be no negative consequences from this.
So what do we do? What do we do back home? I mean, this is a big issue, obviously, not something I'm directly feeling yet, but something I'll probably feel in my wallet over the next couple of months. Is what changes do we make? Other than just stripping out the entire federal system and saying, hey, let's completely redo the government. I mean, this is the hand we're dealt. It's, whoever first party to competency wins, and we're failing at every single side.
I think the first thing to do is make sure that as citizens that we are educating ourselves, engaging in the election process, and make sure that we are really electing people that are competent and have a worldview that is compatible with how the world operates. And obviously part of that too is just educating our own kids through a classical method so that they aren't subject to this idea of watertight bulkheads. So, I mean, it always starts with the grassroots. I don't know that there's any immediate, short-term thing that we can do. We have an election coming up. Many people might have forgotten that there was a debate for the last presidential election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump that got canceled because of COVID. And that debate was the one on foreign policy. And, former President Barack Obama said, drop the F-bomb, about Joe Biden being able to screw things up, but he didn't say the word screw, which I'm sure some of you are disappointed that I said that word. But, that was Trump's strongest policy position, Joe Biden's weakest. I mean, even Democrats will admit that. And we skipped a debate on it. So you can see how by having systems that fail and by not allowing us to have robust discussion, that maybe this could have been stopped 4 years ago had that debate just been allowed to continue. But because of those things, right, it's kind of like the butterfly flapping its wings, the butterfly effect idea that, yes, we do move things around, that life beyond this specific incident can be affected by the decisions that we make.
So, but like, what do I do today? I mean, obviously, it's hard not to feel like we're climbing, we're Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain or whatever. Like, it doesn't seem like there's anything that we can do at a local level to affect change at the top. If all of this is crumbling around us, if we're not punishing pirates because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we want to make sure these pirates have nice and sustainable lives. We don't want to blow them up in the ocean. So what do I do? Is it just getting involved at a local level with politics? Is it?
Well, I don't think it took decades for us to get here, and we're not going to fix it overnight. So, I think, getting involved locally with politics is one way. Making sure that you're giving your kids a classical education is another. Rejecting consumerism, because obviously these are probably going to raise costs for plastic parts coming out of foreign entities. So we can try to be more resourceful and grateful for what we have. The idea of just supporting our local neighbors, I think is going to be huge for us to continue to really be prepared for future inflation. The Federal Reserve just really came out yesterday and said that they don't expect any rate cuts through March, and that's really caused a lot of stock market to go down and have sell-offs because they're expecting some rate cuts earlier. Well, this would push it out potentially even farther. It could be April, May, June. So just think about potentially investing, or if you're thinking about buying a house or buying a car, it's unlikely that interest rates are going to come down as quickly or as early as we expected. So living within our own means is going to be something that's really important in the future as well. So I think it's just understanding that the world around us that we can't rely on the government to fix our problems. We have to be self-reliant, and we have to rely on our neighbors, our church, and our local community in one-on-one type interactions, as opposed to thinking that something, even if we change administrations in a year, there's obviously going to be multiple years of cleanup from this specific mess, as well as $34 trillion in debt that's going to continue to rise. And that's why it's really important to think about where we really spend our time and our energy. If it's chasing a US dollar that is crumbling, where inflation is going super high, and we're trying to obviously pay for things that we have to afford, food, water, clothes, education, that these things are not going to get cheaper in the short term. And so how do we plan now? Is it thinking about starting a garden this year? Is it, trying to scale back? Is it trying to see what industries might profit from an increase in inflation, and trying to maybe invest there instead of in areas that have been successful in the past? So yeah, I think it's important just to be educated on this so that we can understand how bad foreign policy affects our lives here in the United States, that it's not just off in some foreign land, that there's suffering locally in our neighbors when we really, elect people with poor foreign policy experience, who've have a history of making inaccurate and bad decisions on foreign policy, that it's not something that's just going to affect somebody else far away. It affects our families here at home. And we're seeing that, very explicitly with the current administration. So that's what I would say for everyone. Don't be depressed or down. Jesus is still king. God still has a plan for all of us, but we should really just see how the world is operating, and that we can't let our kids get these watertight bulkhead educations, that they need to have a classical education so that they're able to really help rebuild the ruins of this civilization for whatever the next one should be. Otherwise, we can go down a really, really bad path very quickly, and it seems that we might be running out of time. So just keep doing what you're doing, and really just keep having those conversations with your neighbor, saying, what type of education is your child getting? Do they understand how these things work together? Because if we're not educated as Americans, we get the government we deserve, because we're a representative republic. And so far, the government we're getting says that we have not done a good job vetting and electing people who will provide for a prosperous foundation future for us in a way that increases freedom versus one that's really decreased freedom, and is really the results of that are showing. Hello, everyone. I'm hoping that I will see you at our National Events Weekend on May 2nd through 4th, 2024 in sunny Southern Pines, North Carolina. This is being presented by our Classical Conversations Foundation. It is a time for CC families from around the nation to experience 3 days of events and learning about classical education and celebrating the hard work of fellow families on their homeschooling journey. Some of the major events we have are our national conference, where myself and my mom will be speaking, along with other panels such as a grad panel and a dad panel, and you'll hear a lot about the math map. We'll have a national commencement, so if you have a graduating senior, this year we've actually doubled the number of commencements, so we've added a second one so we can allow more people to come and celebrate with us, so be sure to look out for registration for that. And of course, we have the National Memory Master Competition, where one student will win $10,000. And it's such a fun time, and we are going to be opening that up to the public for the first time, so you can sit in and watch it. And it's going to be an exciting time. There's a ton of things on the agenda. We'll have food trucks. We've got camps for your students. So if you're a Classical Conversations family, we are encouraging you to come May 2nd through 4th, 2024. And you can learn more by going to classicalconversationsfoundation.org today. And again, that website is classicalconversationsfoundation.org to get your tickets, and we'll see your family there.
Welcome to Classical Crypto with Will. Today, I'm going to step away from Bitcoin and the ETFs and all the craziness that's happening. And we're going to circle back to NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. Now, if you go back in previous episodes of Classical Crypto, we've gone into depth. We go deep on NFTs, where they live, how they're associated and live on blockchains, how they're traded, price appreciation, metadata, what an NFT essentially is and what value can potentially bring you, and then all the scams that have gone along with it as well. So we've already talked about that, but now I'm seeing some real life application even in the educational space, which is kind of neat for classical conversations. So as we transition from this industrial era into a more technological era, right now we are transitioning from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, right, which correlates with Ray Dalio and a changing world order, and kind of what we're hearing from a lot of people and what we're seeing. I think we're seeing that we're quickly moving from flip phones to smartphones. It's just going digital. Now we can't imagine, even if we're kind of against it, I can't imagine driving to Kansas without my GPS. I love technology in many ways, as much as it kind of scares me. So point is that it's happening very quickly. So what do I mean by this? Because crypto, NFTs fall into Web3, falls into kind of a Bitcoin category. Because why? Because the data lives on a blockchain. So again, a very, very simple explanation of a blockchain. So there's different chains, right? And that's based on different platforms. So Ethereum has its own blockchain platform. That's a layer 1 platform. Hedera has its own platform. Bitcoin has its own blockchain platform. Today's example, we're going to use XRP, or the RippleNet, the Ripple platform, because it's so inexpensive. And I think it has overtaken all the other blockchains. It is the leading blockchain in the world as far as the most transactions or the most activities on chain. And basically what happens is that you can take data and you can tokenize it. You can take that data, you can turn it into a token, and those tokens live on a blockchain, and they're verified by basically every computer, smartphone, every computer in the world. And that's basically how it works. And that's why it's so safe as well, because you're not just relying on a person or a body to verify your data, or a company. Now it's the whole quantum network. Now every computer in the world is bringing transparency and accountability to your token on that blockchain, going, hey, this piece of data was put on by this person or this company at this time, and we verify it. And if there's any changes to that, we as in computers, that sounds weird, but the network has a record of it. And that's why it's safe. And some people shake their head and say, I want the physical copy. Well, that's great, but if you have a paper copy and your house burns down or your bank burns down, it's gone. It's vanished. Even if you have it in 2 different places, over time, that data will go away. So we'll go into some pros and cons, because there's definitely some cons to this as well. But I did want to explain that.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortins. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.